Yeah.
And you weren't really sparring. You were fighting. We were fighting all the time. And just guys getting dropped all the time. And that was just the kind of gym that I was in.
There's no coming back from that. The people who, like, dissipate their teeth through drug usage, you don't get, like, a second set.
Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round...
Joe Rogan was visibly shaken after seeing the damage Jake Paul took in the Anthony Joshua fight, and it pushed him to speak with unusual urgency. He didn't frame it as entertainment or risk for reward. He framed it as genuine danger. Rogan made it clear that boxing isn't just risky, it's life-altering, especially when injuries reach this level. He stressed that continuing to fight after sustaining damage like this doesn't just affect performance, it can permanently impact brain function and everyday life. This is the kind of trauma that follows you home, changes how you think, how you process information, and how you live long after the lights go out. Medical experts, according to Rogan, have been consistent in warning that injuries like these aren't things you simply recover from with time. They carry consequences that can redefine who a person becomes.
Think you can't do things, you don't know what the you're doing in life. It's like literally everything is the quality of your ability to think. And I knew that I was...
Rogan didn't soften his message when addressing Jake Paul directly. He strongly cautioned him against continuing to take these increasingly dangerous fights, emphasizing that no amount of fame, money, or attention is worth risking long-term health. After the Joshua bout, the injuries weren't cosmetic, they were severe. A broken jaw, multiple lost teeth, extensive medical treatment, and months of recovery ahead. Rogan pointed out that continuing down this path against elite heavyweights could result in damage that never fully heals. His message was blunt. The excitement of massive fights comes with a price paid by the body and the brain. And if health is compromised, none of the success matters, especially if you can't even remember it.
Look at all them celebrities, like dude from the Mighty Ducks, the little boy actor that got strung out on drugs. And all his fronts and all his teeth were missing from being on meth or whatever, you know what I mean, whatever drug of choice he was on. There's no coming back from that. The people who, like, dissipate their teeth through drug usage, you don't get, like, a second set. So if I'm not mistaken, the dude from Mighty Ducks, somebody, like, he's been clean and they gave him a makeover and he has, like, pretty much fake teeth. So yeah, the teeth are going to be cooked. Now, I agree with the other part that Rogan was saying, but let's keep going.
Yeah, I think he went into that fight knowing that was probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the big win for him would be that he was even willing to do it and that he could do well for a little bit.
Yeah, and I've already expressed my thoughts on this. I'm not giving no props for a person who says I am a real deal boxer because I went in and get smashed and got my jaw broken, but I lasted longer than Ngannou. But I was crazy enough to try, because to be honest, we're way past the honeymoon stage with a person like Jake Paul. You've been in this for long enough to go through fight camps, dedicate your time, effort, energy, money, spar with people. You spar with some quality names because you have resources and money or whatever. So we're well past that, to the point where you just get credit for stepping in. You maybe got credit your first fight or whatever, first couple of fights for.
David Haye offered a detailed explanation for why Anthony Joshua didn't knock Jake Paul out in the opening round, and his reasoning highlighted how boxing really works. Haye explained that while Joshua didn't land a single fight-ending shot early, the damage accumulated steadily over time. Paul moved well early, stayed mobile, and avoided the heaviest punches, showing some defensive awareness. But Haye emphasized that boxing isn't a movie scene where one punch always ends everything. The repeated shots, the constant pressure, and the sustained punishment eventually broke Paul down. He stressed that Joshua shouldn't be criticized for patience. Controlling a fight, landing clean shots, and letting damage build is often the smarter approach.
What was always going to happen. You know, a lot of people thought it would only last 1 round, 2 rounds, but you know, you got to give Jake credit. You know, he went out there and had a solid game plan and was implementing it at times, was landing shots and was avoiding getting hit with the big shots. You know, but is a reason we have weight categories in boxing, and I'd say he sticks with, the cruiserweight division where the guys are the same size as him, because that, without having the schooling, the many, many years, I was able to give away 100 pounds in weight because I've been boxing since I was 10. I was an international amateur and world champion at cruiserweight. That's why I was able to do the big jump and use the tactics that he used to win the heavyweight championship. But credit to him, nothing but respect for Jake Paul for putting on such an event and putting himself in harm's way.
I would imagine some people back home for you are going to say, man, AJ should have gotten out of there in 2 rounds.
Anyone who understands boxing knows it's very difficult to close the range on someone who doesn't want to hold his feet. And is AJ supposed to just run around swinging and missing? No, he's supposed to wait for the right opportunity, which he did. And once the opportunity presented himself, he landed and the fight was over. But anyone who kind of gives AJ stick because he didn't knock him out in 1 round doesn't understand boxing.
What level would you say Jake Paul is after that performance?
Pardon?
What level would you say Jake Paul is?
It's hard to tell. It's very, very difficult to see what level he was, because he was fighting someone in the...
Across the boxing world, analysts are increasingly questioning Jake Paul's career direction and whether continuing at this level is even viable. Many point out that until recently, Paul largely avoided prime elite fighters, instead facing retired boxers, crossover athletes, or opponents without deep professional resumes. This careful matchmaking helped build a strong-looking record, but it also raised doubts about legitimacy. Now, after losses to Anthony Joshua and Tommy Fury, analysts argue that the risks he avoided have finally caught up with him. These defeats exposed gaps that can't be hidden by promotion alone. More concerning, experts warn that continuing to face elite opposition could put Paul's long-term health at serious risk, damage that no paycheck can justify.
Like Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, none of them are boxers. Nate Robinson, who's a YouTuber. So I guess, over the hill, retired Mike Tyson, who's 60, almost lost his life before the fight and had blood transfusions and was coughing up blood and was transported off of a plane for passing out. And Jake Paul wanted to fight him and still tried to knock him out. A lot of y'all like to say he had mercy on Mike, but I promise you, I watched the fight. Just go back and watch it again. He was trying to knock Mike Tyson out from beginning to end. He could not do it. The reason he couldn't do it is because he refused to get too close to Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson always would swing back, and he knew could not take that punch from Mike Tyson. So he hit and he ran. And at the end of the fight, he was not showing mercy on Mike. He was trying to make sure that he doesn't get knocked out or caught with something stupid, because he knows he's about to win. He didn't want to risk it. I'm not going to keep letting y'all run with this narrative that Mike Tyson was following a script with all these fake script posts running around on Facebook. Or
Eddie Hearn reflected on the fight with his usual calm confidence, explaining that the outcome followed the plan exactly as intended. The strategy was built around patience, control, and gradually wearing Jake Paul down rather than rushing for an early finish. While Hearn admitted he initially expected a quicker stoppage, he later felt the longer fight showcased Joshua's composure and experience even more clearly. He pointed to moments where Joshua stayed relaxed, unfazed, and fully in control. For Hearn, the performance reinforced Joshua's ring intelligence and ability to execute a game plan under pressure. He brushed aside online noise, making it clear that results matter more than social media reactions.
He said before the fight, I'm going to break him down, and then I'm going to knock him out. And that's exactly what he did. I thought it'd be all over within 3 rounds. But, when I got in the ring after, because I was shouting, just, anywhere, arms. I got in, he went, what are you rushing me for? And I was like, oh, sorry. So, but obviously he knows what he's doing, and actually now quite pleased that we got the rounds, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw you said that. Really random, I was on Twitter and I saw Jake Paul's mum said she wants to get in the ring and punch you. She said she doesn't like the smug look on your face. She is promoting her book, so I'm not sure if she wants, But did you see that? What did you think of that?
No, I was very sad, because I couldn't have been nicer and more respectful of Jake and what he's done. And I think Logan's amazing. I think he's an incredible athlete. And I shook Jake Paul's dad's hand in the ring, And if I would have seen Mum, I would have said, all right. But I think over the years we've obviously had our beef, and she probably don't like me anyway. And I am probably a little bit smug. I wasn't smug after the fight because I would have been more smug if it was all over in a round. Yeah. So, no, I give Jake respect, and yeah, sorry, Jake's mum doesn't like me, but if she can...
Many analysts believe the Joshua fight exposed the ceiling of Jake Paul's credibility as a professional boxer. They argue that hype and spectacle can't replace skill, and that celebrity alone doesn't sustain legitimacy in the sport. Paul's earlier bout with Mike Tyson already raised questions among hardcore fans, and the Joshua fight intensified those doubts. Viewership numbers reflected that shift, with serious boxing audiences tuning out in favor of true elite matchups. While conspiracy theories circulated online, most analysts dismissed them. What they agreed on was this: Paul's appeal to dedicated boxing fans is fading, and spectacle without competitive substance isn't enough to sustain a serious boxing career.
Bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible, wasn't it? It was just so bad. It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with the jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner, and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out of the ring 15 months, a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and he was it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on, just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match. And I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ is a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for ages can't fight. He's not a professional boxer. It's just AJ following him around, touching him to the shoulder. Round 1 came and went. Round 2 was much of the same, bit slow. I think AJ got caught with an overhand right at one stage, but sometimes when you're out in the rain, you're going to get wet. He was following him around, taking his eye off the ball, probably a bit undermotivated, thinking, what's his...
Sam Jones delivered one of the most direct assessments of the fight, admitting it was uncomfortable to watch, not because of brutality, but because of what it revealed. He emphasized that surviving rounds isn't the same as competing at a professional level. Constant movement, clinching, and retreating can delay a stoppage, but they don't demonstrate skill or dominance. Jones criticized the reliance on survival tactics, arguing that true boxing is about engagement, offense, and technical execution. According to him, the fight highlighted the divide between entertainment boxing and genuine competition, where respect is earned through skill, courage, and consistent performance.
Or you put on a pair of boxing gloves. That does not mean that you will be perceived as legitimate. It doesn't mean people will be willing to pay to watch you fight. Me personally, I was done with Jake Paul after the pretend fight that he had with Mike Tyson last year. Clearly, I'm not the only one, because viewership for his fight last weekend with Anthony Joshua, it was significantly lower than a real fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the main channels in the description below. There are a lot of allegations right now that the fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua was rigged, or it was supposed to be rigged. According to the conspiracy theories, Jake Paul was supposed to win the fight, but Anthony Joshua decided to knock his ass out anyway. If it was supposed to be rigged, it would not be the first time that a fight in boxing was stained with corruption. But either way, it doesn't matter. because interest in seeing Jake Paul fight is on the decline. His fight last weekend averaged 33 million views on Netflix. Now, to his credit,
Duke McKenzie offered a veteran's perspective, stating that the result itself told the entire story. From his experience, the decisive knockout clearly illustrated the gap in skill, experience, and preparation between the two fighters. McKenzie stressed that acknowledging this reality isn't about disrespecting Jake Paul personally, but about understanding what championship-level boxing demands. For him, the outcome didn't require endless debate. It was a reminder that elite boxing requires years of experience against top opposition, and that talent alone isn't enough without that foundation.
Jake Paul's jaw, just talk to me right now about the fight itself and then we'll break it down.
Bit of a crap fight, if we're all honest. It was like watching Jaws 2 when all the kids went out on their boats and they were in the middle of the sea and the shark was just surrounding the boat, just like that's what it was like. It was just like a shark circling its prey and just like it was like nibbling and eventually got him. But Jake Paul showed big plums in there, no matter what anybody says about him, because I've seen people say, yeah, he went in there to survive. Yeah, okay, he went in there to survive. He's a guy that's been boxing a couple of years against a unified champion of the world who can really punch. Yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best fight. It just wasn't the best thing to watch, was it? Like it was just, yeah, it weren't great. I just want to see now Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. I think at the stages of their careers they're at, AJ and Tyson Fury, we don't need to see interim fights, Andrew. We don't need to see interim fights because they're just potential banana skins. We want to see two.
After the fight, discussion quickly shifted to what Jake Paul should do next, and whether continuing in the heavyweight division makes sense at all. Many analysts believe the size, power, and experience gap poses serious safety concerns. Facing elite heavyweights who have trained their entire lives at that level presents risks that go beyond competition. Observers are urging Paul to reassess his career path, consider more suitable divisions, and prioritize long-term health. The broader takeaway is clear. In professional boxing, ambition and hype must be balanced with realistic risk assessment, physical compatibility, and the understanding that health outweighs any momentary spotlight.
Like, you know, like when you've got a fly on the windscreen and you're trying to swat it, and you're trying to swat it and you miss and you keep tapping, and then eventually, bang, you get it. That's exactly what that fight was. Jake Paul didn't get in there to win last night. He got in there to survive. And he didn't do a job of surviving. He sold the fight brilliantly. That's what he is. He's a salesman. And he's a YouTuber, influencer, call him whatever you want. So from that perspective, he did his job, but he never got in there to win. He just got in there to got beat up. I'm glad Anthony Joshua done a number on him. This is why boxers are boxers, YouTubers, whatever they want to call themselves, influencers, you know, they should stay in their lane and fight people that they're supposed to fight on their level. This guy was never on Anthony Joshua's level, and Joshua did what he needed to do, did what he had to do for the sake of boxing, and blow this guy up and just knock him out.
What about the fact that Jake was able to land on him clean a couple of times? What did you make of that?
Oh, listen, you can't get into the water without getting hit. Fortunately for Joshua, that guy can't break an egg. So he was never in any danger. You know, he's always going to get hit back. I mean, you know, it was 6 rounds. Anthony Joshua was always going to take at least 1 or 2 shots over that 6-round period, but it was nothing to hurt him, it was nothing to bother him. And like I say, this is all about getting AJ's confidence back. Okay. If Jake Paul fights, if he fights KSI or KFC or whatever his name is, then those two are evenly matched, aren't they? They're evenly matched, and then they could fight, you know, and then because they're
effort he gave. Now I know it's not easy to fight a guy that's running away from you, and Jake Paul made a ring bigger. It was 22 by 22.
It's a huge ring. When I was looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, this ring's massive.
I had said before the fight, I tweeted, I said it was like a soccer field that they were, you know, fighting in, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's not easy to do that, but he just looked poor in there and like he didn't really care. And, you know, you're being paid that much money and people are, you know, I looked at tickets today just to see on their ticket map how many tickets were left and what it was like. And there was tickets being sold for $3,500. And then this is the kind of performance, if you're AJ, that you give when you're being paid $35 million and people are paying that much money to get in. I thought that was, you know, the whole show was awful. Netflix ought to be embarrassed for putting